Hello, hey, hi, welcome back to No Way, Tell Me Everything. My name is Jess, I am your host, and I have with me today a good friend of mine, a lovely guest named Signe. Welcome, Signe.
Thank you.
Signe and I have tech issues together every single time, so we are hitting record immediately because everything is working. This is, I think, maybe the fifth time over like a past couple months we've tried to record this, and it's working. So we haven't discussed what we're going to talk about. We're just recording, and Lord knows when I go to like fix this and edit and like export it, it's going to be like none of the audio imported or something.
That could happen.
Yes. So let's get straight into it. Signe is a good friend of mine. We talk, I think I probably talk to you more than I talk to my husband at this point. But I know Signe originally because I worked with her husband for, I think, around 10 years at the agency. He was my creative director, and I kind of ran the studio, creative services. We worked together a lot. And so I had met you a number of times, but I think like many things pre-awakening, pre-big changes, like it wasn't time for us to bond yet. So I loved you. I thought you were so great and I loved hanging out with you, but there wasn't like a push to become really close friends with you on my side. It was just like, oh, I love when Signe's there. I invited you and Thomas over multiple times for dinner and everything. It wasn't like I didn't want to be around you. But I feel like we reconnected after I had gone through my awakening, and it was like a whole new level of now I really feel this push to be closer friends with you. I feel like I mean, there's always those thoughts post awakening where you're like, how did I sleep on this? How did I not realize how amazing our relationship could be as friends? But, of course you don't because you're not meant to at that point, right?
It's all about timing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for being on today, Signe. I'll say what we're planning to talk about is the gene keys. Um, but we'll let the spirit take us where it wants to take us. So with all of that rambling done, welcome, Signe. Would you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
I can talk a little bit about myself. My name is Signe. I have a background in fashion, and now I see myself as more of an intuitive consultant or an open-minded person that you can talk to about anything. I love the gene keys, but I'm not married to a system. And I know, Jess, that you agree with that way of being. I dig astrology. I dig all of these different things. Energetics, bit of a weaver, dreamer, breather. Yeah, it's I'm a mother of two. Should not forget that. Lovely boys. So yeah.
Yeah. So Signe is one of those friends that, and I think this is where when we started really opening up to each other, and like you have to have a group of friends that are supportive, but also like you can say the craziest, quote unquote, craziest per mainstream standards shit, and they'll meet you at that point. Not that they're accepting, right? Because we all have the friends that are like, oh, okay, sure. And like they don't make you feel bad, but you can just see that it ends there because they're like, okay, I can't take that anywhere. And then you have those friends that you're like, hey, I think the auroras might be some sort of sentient thing. And they're like, let's talk about trees or dragons. And you're like, this is great. I can talk about anything with this person and they can meet me there. And I feel like go with it, right? It's like the improv of like, yes, and.
It's like if you don't get the subtle eye roll, right? If like sometimes when you say something and people just go like, and then you're like, okay, that energy died right there. I need to sip it and take it back a notch.
Yeah.
We don't do that with each other. We can talk about absolutely anything.
Absolutely anything. So let's talk about absolutely anything. How are you feeling? Because this episode, I'm going to put it out in 2 weeks because we've been trying to do this. I think I checked the last time we tried was October.
Yeah.
So this will be out in 2 weeks, which will be around the beginning of eclipse season and Fire Wars. So let's talk about where we are now and what's coming because it's a big one.
Well, this is going to be a big couple of weeks leading up to this. Like we're going to do a challenge together, right? On that date, actually, on the 17th,
if you're listening to this, Sabrina Lynn Rewilding,
exactly.
lovely podcast, like with a weekly. I will say I love Sabrina's weekly astrological forecasts. I think if you don't have any clue about astrology, it's maybe a bit much because she really goes into the esoteric and the archetypal. And I think you do have to have some base understanding. But if you have a base understanding, she goes deep with every single week, every single day of the week, and she's doing a challenge.
And I like the way that she kind of gives you tips on how to embody it and bring it into reality, right? And I think that's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to that. But there's still like we have the tail of the snake, right? The heavy shedding, which
Yeah.
is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
For the next couple of weeks. I
You know
have
what I
my
love
birthday
about
coming up.
energy though is you're like, "Oh, I'm not feeling it." And then the next day you're like, and kablam. There it is. Like, you were talking a lot last week about how you could really feel, and now I'm sharing your words, so I hope it's okay, but you were saying how you could deeply feel the last hard shedding because as Sabrina mentions it, you have to rub up against something to shed that skin. Like I love her the way the beautiful poetic metaphor she kind of tells things and is what I personally love about it as well. But she talks about how like you don't just lose the skin. You have to rub up against the last layers of the skin to really pull off like exfoliate, right?
I can
And
absolutely feel that though.
yeah.
These like
Well, I didn't
right
feel it
now,
last week. I was like, maybe I already did it. And then this week I'm like, oh no, I didn't. I just didn't have anything to rub up against last week.
yeah, I'm getting like triggered right, left, and center, but like in small ways. And the win for me is catching myself in the trigger,
Mhm.
right? So instead of going into full blown despair and all of these like why me feelings, I'm more like this is interesting.
Mhm.
Hold on. And I get to experience this. This is such a reframe I've been doing for the last while. Instead of going, oh no, I've been going, I get to do this. I get to clean my house. I get to take care of everything. I get to pick up my kids today, you know?
Yeah. I
And
think there's two things that you mentioned that I have been thinking about a lot, and I think it's really important. When we think about these kind of transformations and changes within ourselves, I feel like the movie industry, Hollywood, has really conditioned us to think that they're these huge, monumental things. Like when we talk about shedding and we talk about changes and all this other stuff, I feel like maybe it's just me, I don't think so, but, like, you're predisposed to think that it's big events happening. Like, with Uranus leaving Taurus, for example, a lot of people have been talking about, like, these changes, this constant instability and chaos is gonna ramp up for the next 2 weeks. Yay! And then it's gonna leave.
mhm,
And I can see that in my everyday life, but what I've noticed is that, a couple years ago, I thought of chaos as like really big things. And maybe it's because of the transformation that I have been going through, but it's not. Like, for example, I got a parking ticket on Monday. And to your point, I caught myself in that trigger and I actually reflected on how much better I was handling it now. Because if you knew Jess back during Corona time, so about the time that Uranus went into Taurus, I was getting parking tickets left, right, and center. I have ADHD. I fucking forget to set my parking meter thing. Like, if you don't live in Denmark, we have to all have these parking things on the car. And we didn't have an automatic one, so you had to like flip it. So I was constantly getting tickets and I would rage. I would rage. It would ruin my whole day. I would not want to pay it. I would really fixate on the money because that's where I have a lot of issues. I'd really fixate on now I have to sacrifice somewhere else because I have to pay for this freaking parking ticket. And I got a parking ticket on Monday and I already knew I would get a parking ticket because as I walked back to my car, I saw parking tickets on everybody's car. And I was like, oh, fuck. There's been a parking person around here. And then I was like, there was no parking signs on my street, but who the hell knows, right? Copenhagen's not known for the clearest parking signs. So I kind of had this inkling of like, I bet that I got a parking ticket because I've been here more than 3 hours, which was the street that was parallel to mine. Sure enough, there's a parking ticket. So my initial reaction was just, ugh, ugh. And that was it. And I reflected to your point of like, oh my God, I would have absolutely handled this way worse. That's growth. But it's this little
yeah.
growth, but it's growth, right?
It's subtle, and you have to kind of like applaud yourself every time you see yourself doing it. You have to give yourself the credit because that's part of it as well. It's got acknowledge yourself for handling something in a different way. Because I mean, we're also doing another course together, which is
Yes. Eliana's class,
Prophesy.
Prophecy. Lovely.
Yeah,
Eliana, Miranda, Wellness Weaver. Amazing
Amazing.
woman. Yeah.
And for this right now, we're studying our sun in the gene keys, and mine is gene key 49, which is the shadow of reaction. And if there's anything that we see playing out in the world at present is reaction, right? Like everybody's reacting to everything. Everybody has a reaction. And this is the reason why wars are here. Like, I mean, and that's my sun. This is my shadow. And the gift frequency of that gene key is revolution. And to me, it's been really interesting thinking about revolution, because when I first read that, I was like, revolution? I don't relate to that at all. I mean, like, I'm thinking the French Revolution. I'm thinking like big and bombastic. But as we were just talking about, that's not it. It's the little ones. It's the breaks. It's the pauses that you create to not react. That's the revolution. I mean, it's as simple as that. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for being able to do this work and actually looking at these things. And I think a lot more people are doing it as well now than they were just a few years back.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are waking up. I feel like it's all of the spectrum of the different genders are waking up and realizing it. And even people who aren't even that spiritual, I think it's interesting, are waking up and not realizing they're waking up, because we just all have different languages and different lenses that we talk about things. But, looking at your life and going, wait a second, that's not true. I don't like that's an awakening. So what you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can just suddenly change your views. Okay, I would call that you've awakened in some way, right? Yeah, let's hit on the gene keys in a little bit, because I want to get deeper into what exactly everything you just said meant, because I didn't know anything about gene keys till I met Signe, and she's very knowledgeable about them. But so we have the eclipses coming up in 2 weeks. I did an episode on the eclipse back in October, because we have them twice a year. And I think the eclipses are one of those things where, to your point, feeling grateful that you get to be able to do this work is a really good mindset to have, because at times it's difficult, and being able to look at it from a different lens of, this doesn't just suck. This sucks with a purpose. Like, again, I'm a somatic practitioner, so I'm always going to tell you, you're allowed to feel the feelings. You're allowed to acknowledge that it's not all rosy. You don't want to practice this toxic positivity. Sometimes it sucks, but it sucks with a purpose. Like, if you work with it and you understand it and you let yourself experience it, you're going to grow. You're not going to be as reactive, which, yeah, the world would benefit if everybody wasn't so reactive all the time, right? Because a lot of times most of the time, it's our projections and everything. Um, but we have this eclipse coming up in 2 weeks is it on the day of Fire Horse
Yeah.
starting? Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like,
It's
when
a
other
new
people are
moon.
like, I don't agree with, oh yeah, it's a new moon, Fire Horse, an eclipse, a solar eclipse. And it's like, I don't believe in astrology and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I personally don't see how you can't, but okay, that's fine. But like the conjunction of those things together, or the fact that we had Imbolc on Sunday on a full moon in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, and the whole holiday is about welcoming back the sun. I'm like, these aren't coincidences. These are insane energetic times on this planet.
Think the people that say they don't believe in astrology is because they don't know how complex it is. They know it from the newspapers in the 90s, right? Like where you read your horoscope and you read your sun sign and they go, oh, that doesn't sound anything like me. And I can get that because there's so much more, right, to it. We have all the energetics, like we have all of the different energies, all of us, and they just have different positions in our lives. So that's also why you'll go, oh, but I relate to that sign as well. I'm like, yeah, because it's a part of you. Of
Yeah,
course you do.
everybody has their sign somewhere in their chart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. I think a lot of people also like need science or need tangible. And if that's your worldview, that's your worldview. And so then, of course, astrology is going to be, flim flam. I'm using a lot of weird words today, but a lot of like flim flam to you.
It's because you're talking to me because I make up words for everything. Really, it's not,
It's the energy.
but that's what I came from. Like, I was like, no, hard no to astrology, hard no to anything energetics. And I was like, no, only science. Science is king, right? And science is still great, but science is just explaining magic, right? So you can merge it. You don't have to choose. You can hold everything if you want to.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just about cracking that little crack in your mind system, and then opening it up, and then you can go in and you can explore, because there's so much to explore.
And
Like,
you know what they say about cracks? That's where the light comes in, right?
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I think science is wonderful. To your point, we all explain things differently. So a lot of us will cling to different ways that make us feel safer. And I think this is not a judgment of anyone who is fully science. It's not a judgment before I say this. However, I think from my perspective, the people who really can only believe things that happen in science, it's a defense mechanism, I think, in a lot of disembodiment from themselves. Because a lot of people will disavow their own experiences with things and even hear something and be like, that fully resonates with me. But there's no scientific evidence of it, so I can't believe it. And I think it's an outsourcing of your own power and a disconnection from yourself. And so I think for a lot of people, it's easier to just believe what you already has like what has been researched for you. And you've learned that that's the way that you should understand the world, and you've learned to disavow yourself. And so if you're able to let that crack happen and let some light shine in, I feel like yourself, a lot of people start to come back and realize, wait a second, I can actually figure out for myself what's right, right?
Yeah, but it's so interesting the way you're saying it as well, because that was literally me for most of my life.
Mm.
I think as a child I was very open and I was very religious, actually, but my family wasn't. And then I kind of like got that. Not, I was gonna say beaten out of me, but there was no force. It was just a choice at some point, because I was like, oh no, I don't believe that anymore. And then, like, getting that crack in. And what's now, I'm going to tie it back to the Jinkies, because Richard Rudd, who wrote the Jinkies and or who trans or received the Jinkies, he says this thing about scientists, which is really beautiful. And he says a true scientist has will always have an open mind. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he'll and a true scientist won't get stuck on an idea. Like, religious people can get stuck on an idea. Scientists get stuck on an idea. It's all about not getting stuck on one idea. And I think that's one of those things that we really connect about as well, that we'll go out in the world and we'll see what resonates with us. And that's the whole thing. It's like you have to look inside yourself, because that's where your your realness is, your energy. Like, if you can learn to, like, push away all the other energetics around you and just pull back yourself, that's such a good thing to just be able to do.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
I agree. I mean, I actually am friends with a couple of scientists, and they're both really spiritual. And like one is a microbiologist who goes out on Arctic explorations to test like ocean waters and all this other stuff. Like she's very, very scientific, like very scientist in the lab, looking at dishes and things like that. Um, and one thing we always talked about was that actually, in her experience, most scientists are actually extremely open minded because you have to be. Because how are you going to get a hypothesis to try to even test anything?
It's the
But they
thing.
also understand the process that you have to go through to do studies. And it's extremely restrictive. It's very much funding based. And so you really can't, it's very hard to get funding. And it has to be in relation to something that someone basically eventually will want to make money off of. Right. Um, so scientists are very aware of how difficult it is to actually test something. Also, the equipment is what the equipment is. There's some things that we still can't test with the equipment we have. So I do think it's kind of comical that people who rely on science as this is, if science hasn't explained it, I don't believe it, are actually in I was about to say still in they're against the actual scientists who say that you have to keep an open mind and you have to constantly be thinking of how it is, and also accept that science is often wrong. When you retest things, you can have different nature is just magical, as we know, right? So it's not always going to perform in the exact same way in some circumstances, right?
Yeah, but if you look at all the big scientific breakthroughs as well, they came from a single individual who had an absolute crazy idea and didn't want to give it up. Like, you could look at Darwin, you could look at all these different people, you can look at the um like metaphysics. Like what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about
No, there's like the Higgs boson and all the quantum physics
yeah,
and all this
quantum
other
physics.
stuff.
That's what I
Yeah.
was looking for because like that was part of my spiritual awakening as well.
Yeah.
Um, I I got sick from work and I just had this inkling. Something was just saying look into quantum physics, and I was like,
Mm.
why? Like I work in a clothing store. Why should I look into quantum physics? And I just started like listening to all the books about it I could find, and I was like, holy crap! Nothing can be measured for real. And that was my crack in my scientific thing, actually, and that was my way into spirituality.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's great.
yeah,
Well, let's segue that into gene
the gene
keys.
keys, because that
So,
is
could
also
you give a very basic explanation of where the gene keys came from? You mentioned Richard Rudd, who is the founder of the gene keys. Just give like a very for people that we assume, like myself originally, did not know what this is.
it's a system based on the I Ching, human design, and astrology, and it ties together to human DNA and to everything really. Richard Rudd is a poet. His language is really beautiful and very like it tickles my mind in all the right ways. Like I get really excited about his words. Um, and he has made the system that follows the same system as human design, if you know that, which got all the 64 gates, the 64 keys, they are the same. And we have transits, so they follow the year, the circle of the year as well. Um, and then you're born with your planets in certain places, and those are your energies that will show up in a certain way in your life. You can go to the site and get a free profile, and there's so much information to dive into if you're curious about it.
Yeah. So basically, there was all these existing systems or modalities or things that you want to from different parts of the world. I believe is human design originally from India? Where's
It's
it
from
from?
well, it's from Ibiza. It's from Raoul who received that. I think he was Canadian actually, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but
Yeah, I'm not an expert on human design at all.
yeah, no, and he received it, and then he just kind of like he left his car running with a running engine and just ran away from his job. He was like a business dude, and then he just went on and he started teaching the system, and he's developed it, and it's strangely accurate, I find.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, back to like science and all this other stuff, like when I read my astrological birth chart, and I read tropical, not Vedic, so the Western Hellenistic astrology, that's what I'm currently aware of. But like when I read that, I'm like, yep, that's me in a nutshell. And when I read human design, I'm like, yep, that's me in a nutshell. And then I read the stuff from the gene keys and I'm like, totally relate to that. And I think that's the great thing is like I don't to your point, he received it. Like he downloaded it, I guess. And so that's how a lot of people got the information and okay, sure, it
he
works.
got it from what he calls the voice, like that told him everything. And it wasn't as complicated as it is now. When he first received it, it was quite a simple system, and then he built on it
Yeah,
by working with it, right?
yeah.
But what I find so interesting about the gene keys compared to astrology and human design is that in the gene keys, you get very much in contact with your shadow. Like you get that part of you that you don't want to face. You get that really kind of described. And it's not because it's bad, it's just there. And it's all about accepting that it's there.
Mhm.
Um, but I just got to see myself when I found that system. I got to see myself in such a different way. And I could see so many different perspectives and so many different angles of myself. And I was like, oh, but I so do these things, but I
Mm,
never noticed. And
yeah,
yeah, it's if it's also a system that calls you, like it's a living transmission. So you have to listen with your body and or read it
mm,
with your body. It goes into your genes and really changes up stuff in there, which is
yeah.
really quite
Well, so you mentioned that we're in this offering from Eliana at the moment, both of us, and we're working a lot with the gene keys and with human design and with our astrology. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of times, because we're brought up the way we are, where you have to choose a belief system. So you choose to be atheist, or you choose to be agnostic, or you choose to be um, Jewish or Muslim or one of the Christian sects or Catholic. Like there's one. You choose one and that's your one, right? And the one thing I love about being open minded is why do I have to choose one? Why can't I look at all of them as possibilities of different explanations of me? And I have not explored every single system because there's so many systems out there, right? But I would say for the most part, there's usually I can see myself in every single one in different ways. And I think with astrology, it tends to be very much like more grounded. So it's like this is your personality. This is the kind of real life material kind of ways, or this is the way that you think. And it's kind of very I keep saying material, like that's the word that I keep thinking of, but like material. Whereas with what I'm learning about the gene keys, and maybe it's because Richard Rudd is a poet, it's much more about the more ethereal side of you, like the intangible essence. Because, for example, as part of this course, we have to meditate on or think a lot about, feel into our life's work, which is one of the gene key
Sun, that was
categories.
what I was calling the sun. It's the same thing.
Exactly. And like, I know from astrology what things I'm good at and where I excel, and I agree. And I know from human design where I get energy from, what kind of like not necessarily activities, but like what gives me energy, right? But with the gene key, it gave me something else that I had kind of been hearing from people, but I never actualized, which is, for example, mine is 23, and it's very much about simplicity. And it's about how I'm able to take complex topics, ideas, things, and ground them down and simplify them in a way that helps other people understand them. And I had been hearing that from people for years. I mean, when I used to work at the agency, I was the fixer. I was the person that could look at the problem and filter out all the crap that didn't matter and get down to the most important things and fix it really quickly, to the point that like my British bosses were like, you could try remembering to ask people how their children are on calls instead of just going straight to what we need to do. And I'm like, That's not me. I don't do that." Right. But that is that intangibleness of the gene key, is like, these are the gifts that you have, the ability. If you again I will ask you to talk about the city and the gift and the shadow, whatever, the challenge, I can't remember. I'll have you do that. But that's what I actually am starting to really love about the gene keys, is it's helping me understand my gifts and who I am as a person and the way that I react and think in that intangible way that I've never really been able to express myself. It's just been something that I do, right?
Yeah, and that's it. And what it also, because it can also be often that the things that you have in your shadow, which is like the maybe undesirable side, when it's in imbalanced, when you are in not in balance, that's how you react to things. The gift is where you really want to be, and the city is the highest expression. So if you're in your God body, in your Buddha body, that is how that will act out, and that is what we're moving towards. But it can also be what you attract.
Mm.
So you will also see these things play out in the people around you, which I also find super fascinating, because when you kind of like get into it a little bit more, then you're like, oh, I don't feel myself doing this so much anymore, but look
Mm.
over there, and you still attract it
Mm.
because it's just the energy that's around you.
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. I have the 23 as well, so I know that energy very well.
Hmm.
Let me simplify this and make it a better system. That is much me as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do. That I mean, I wasn't in operations by title, but that was always what I do. I would come in and find a broken system and I would fix it. Like, and I would move from place to place and doing that. Um, so unlike like with astrology, we have just this is the spectrum of qualities that are related to, say, a Taurus, and some are like more desirable, for lack of a better word, and some are more like the shadow. I call them highest expression and shadow expression. So it's like I'm really driven, but I can be like way too stubborn. I can fly through all the red flags and just keep going without stopping. Like there's those kind of things. And then we have the same thing in the gene keys, but there's three different explanations. So if anyone wants to go to, is it genekeys.com? I think just Gene, like the DNA, Gene.
Like
If
gene,
you
like
go
in
there,
Gene.
sorry, I said Gene, yes, Gene,
Yeah.
DNA,
Yeah.
keys, you can get a free profile. And if you get one, if you've looked at your human design profile before, it looks slightly like that, right? Because you have the gates, you have like these shapes with numbers and so
It's a
that looks really
sphere.
confusing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a sphere. Okay, thank you. But it has like these gates, right? Like it has them, I don't know. Do you call them gates?
It's called keys.
Keys. Okay,
Yeah, but
sorry.
it's
Yes,
the
of course.
same
Gene
thing.
keys.
And
Yes.
what I actually really recommend if you're interested is they have a newsletter called The Pulse, which is, it goes through the different transits. So every 6 days, like every transit, every key is about 6 days long, give or take. And then you get an email with Richard Rudd's contemplation on that specific key. And that's such a great help. And then if you really want to go deeper, then you get the book, and then you got like 7 pages of text, which is the actual key. That's what he wrote down. And like he studied under Rahu, I can say his name, Rahu,
Mm-hmm.
from that downloaded
From human
the
design.
human design. So that's
Yeah.
also why he used that as a base for his system, right? So it's I can really recommend it if it's calling you. If you get that pull, you go, there's something here for me, then go explore.
So I remember when I think we started, I remember we met up at a cafe, this lovely little outdoor cafe in Copenhagen. And then you told me about this, and I went and I got my profile, and I was like, what am I looking at? So for people who get the profile, it'll show you the number and it'll tell you the different areas. And I think on the app, you can like navigate a bit better than on the online version. But go ahead.
There's like on the online version, if you just click on the different things, there's a lot of information hit there. Then they have a little thing that's called New to the Gene Keys, which gives you an introduction. I think it's a 3-day thing where you get like, just get it explained and show what you have to look at. And there's a lot of courses you can buy as well. I haven't done any of them. I kind of just went rogue with it because that's my spirit and that's what I do. I'm just like, I'm going to find my own way in this. And then I joined the Pulse, the newsletter, which I
Right.
really love.
And what are the 3, because like I was trying to say before and then lost my train of thought. In astrology, they don't have things categorized as this is a higher expression, this is a shadow expression. I think it again, like to what you said, I'm going to get off topic again, but to what you said earlier, I love embracing your shadow because it is part of you and it's something that, doesn't have to be viewed as a negative. That's just part of you and that's how you operate, and understanding yourself better is great. And I think with the gene keys, they do it really differently in a nice way, which is they have this like 3 different terms that talk about kind of where in the ascendance or
Yeah, but it's not
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like that, but then it's also not like that as well. It's like different levels, and it's kind of what when it's all about accepting the shadow and then, like figuring that out. And then when you start living, there's this whole energetics behind it, that the more people living at the gift frequency, the more people will be able to read the city frequency. And if there's just one person, it'll take like 100,000 people at the gift frequency for one person to reach the city. So it's kind of like, because you expand it into the energy field, right? Like when you contemplate these things and you live and embody all of these principles, you share it out into your energy field, which people around you will feel. And this is how we all like upgrade the field into higher consciousness. And that's,
I feel like a good word is like its purest form or its truest form,
yeah,
because I like I like the idea that it's not about an ascendance, because I feel like again this is a takeaway from religion, patriarchy, capitalism, of having a hierarchy of something is better than another thing. And I like that it's not like that. It's just that this is like maybe its purest form of this particular thing, but it's not like pure as in better.
better. It's not
Yeah.
better. Yeah, it's not better. It's all about, yeah, but it's about, let's see, what we really all want to do is like, we want to avoid wars, right? We want to avoid all the conflicts and all the shit,
Most
right?
of us, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the people who are pushing it would as well if they knew themselves. So it's basically it's about, yeah, and it's also about when you upgrade yourself energetically, like people will feel it. It's the ripple effect, right? I can see such a change even in my home life after I started letting that crack come in, letting that light come in. Like people around me are also just happier. It's not just me.
No, yeah.
It's everyone around me that are, also more open-minded. And I mean, because I think if they are not receptible to that energy that you then kind of send out, they'll fall away, right? And that is also the shedding. Then we're back to that again. But now I'm going to say something really dangerous, but I don't feel like I've lost a lot of people by letting the crack come in. Like I don't feel like I've been shedding so many people.
Not the ones that matter anyway, not the ones that ever truly mattered to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like I've lost theirs.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think I don't really love the whole vibrating at higher frequencies and lower frequencies because, of course, everything is energetic and everything vibrates. But again, I feel like it sometimes can be a bit tainted into the I'm vibrating higher than this and you're vibrating lower. And that's not quite it. But a lot of times, the way I kind of feel about it is before my awakening and before I started doing the work to self discovery and understanding my true, authentic self and coming back to that, I was vibrating at someone else's frequency. So I was taking on all of these other people's frequencies. And so I kind of imagine it as like this, dissonance. And we see cognitive dissonance right now. And I think it's because a lot more of us are awakening. And a lot of people are also realizing, like, wait a second, I don't actually vibe with what I am saying. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this. I had it a lot in the past. I would say something, and there was a part of me that's like, "Oh, I I don't know if I actually believe what I just said though." And like it's that beginning of those cracks where you're like, "Wait." And so now I feel like I'm vibrating at my own frequency, which again to the gene keys is like that purest, truest form I'm talking about is not about being better or not. It's just this is the frequency it's meant to be at. And
That's
it
a
can
really
be
good
influenced.
explanation. Because that is when I say higher frequency, it's not a better than
Hmm.
in any way, shape, or form. And that's true. It's true. It's like your own energy. And that's again about if these practices where you kind of expel other people's energies and pull your own energy back to you are absolutely gold. Like if you can do that a few times a day, life just slides so much easier. Like it's, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a good explanation, Jess. I like that.
Thank you. Well, I can fully feel that I'm connected to you and my guides are here. And like the whole purest, truest thing was not my thoughts. So I can totally feel that they are currently helping me speak to it. I'm just using my Gene Key 23 right now, Sina.
Yeah, do
Um,
it.
but what I also wanted to talk about is this prophecy because Richard Rudd, on top of making the Gene Keys, has talked about this Dragonfly Prophecy. And then is it the Cross of the Phoenix is
That's just the
2027?
sleeping phoenix that
The
we're going to
Cross of the
step
Sleeping
into
Phoenix.
on the in February in
Okay.
2027.
Right. So we're stepping into the Dragonfly Prophecy first, which is this year. And I would love, now that I know a bit more about that, and it's also just I do love a poetic system. I do love the beautiful way of relating to life, right? So I think it would be really nice to explain to people what the Dragonfly Prophecy is, if you don't mind.
Well, what happened was what Richard Rudd did when he was writing the Gene Keys is he tapped into the energy of all these different things. And when he got to the 55, it just didn't stop coming. So it's the 55th Gene Key, and it's maybe 20 pages long in the book. It's such a long thing compared to everything else. It's also the only one that only has two steps. Like it's got now I'm gonna say codependency, but I don't think that's actually it. I don't remember the shadow right now. But the freedom is both the gift and the city. And I have this 3 times in my profile. I should remember. What he did, he wrote that down, and what it is going to start shifting the background frequency in 2027. So the dragonfly is actually a fully fledged animal. Like it's a hunter. It lives a perfectly good life underwater for many years until it all of a sudden gets this thing activated inside of it, and it climbs up a straw, and then it embelbles, and then it becomes the dragonfly, right? Which is a super fast flying animal, and it doesn't have any
Gorgeous.
idea about it. Yeah,
No.
it's and this is what the prophecy says is basically what we're experiencing as humans right now. So right now we are living perfectly capable lives, but what we are to become is something way grander than we can even grasp at this moment. And yeah, it's a very interesting prophecy. It's also one that follows the astrology, and it follows also the human design, because this is February 2027 is a big deal. Like there's also going to be, I think it's the
2026 or 2027?
mm,
So next
February
year.
2027. Yeah, next year.
Okay, I haven't even looked at that yet.
This is the year of the closing door. Is the 2026.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is kind of like when we all get on the page with big changes are going to come. There's also going to be like a really powerful eclipse, the longest that's been in like 3,000 years or something, in February 2027. There's a lot of things going on there.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I won't do psilocybin on that one then, because then
No.
God knows what'll come through.
Well, maybe it's a good idea to do it to get on the
Yeah.
page. I don't know.
Just people psilocybin on eclipse dates. That's an intense experience if
Have you
you're
done
gonna
that?
do that. It's the shadow really wants to come through during eclipse season. So if you add some fuel to the fire, just just be prepared for that one. But I think what's really beautiful, I have a limited knowledge of the dragonfly prophecy. I'm still learning about it. But first of all, just how fucking magical is nature that this is true. This is how dragonflies become dragonflies. Like, yes, it's part of the prophecy, but that's actually what happens. They're called a nymph, and they're under the water just chilling. And then, yeah, this like DNA mutation happens, and they're like, oh, time for me to go up and fly above the water. And they climb up the straw, and they squeeze all the water out of their body and become a dragonfly. Like, what in the hell?
And
Magical.
the word I was looking for is actually they're fully functional predators underneath the water as well, like when
Yeah.
they're nymphs.
Yeah.
Nymphs.
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 Nymphs. Yeah.
I'm doing so well with
But I
words.
also think that that is very indicative of what we see happening. Like, we're talking about the awakening. I don't know if this is part of his prophecy, but as I've been thinking about what it must be like, I don't know. For me, I was thinking about what it must be like to be a nymph under the water and not realize that there's a whole, because I feel like going through a phase where like I know that there's a really interesting, colorful future for me above the water. I mean, I'm above the water, but you know what I mean? Like there's something I just can't imagine it. And I also feel that way about life. Like whenever we think of possibilities, anything is possible because we just don't have the ability to know that these things can definitely happen, like the dragonfly. And I was thinking a lot about what it must be like to be under the water and relating it to people awakening now. And it's again this idea we kind of touched on earlier of when you're under the water, you're seeing everything distorted. You're looking up and seeing the world distorted through the water, but you're not knowing there's a different way to see the world or to be until you wake up and then you climb up this straw and suddenly everything is clearer in this way that you never imagined before. And that's so indicative of what awakening feels like. You're suddenly like, I thought everything was like this because that was my lens, you
Yeah,
know?
Richard Rudd had like a 3-day experience where he said he had access to all knowledge, and he lived 3 days where he just explored everything. And what he tells us when he says how he saw the future is that you can't even imagine, like we're light beings, like we're not what we are now. We're not this flesh and blood. And I mean, this is a process he also says is not going to happen on the 27th in 2027, right? It's like that's a slower, longer process, but it's just there is definitely something coming, right? I
Yeah.
don't think
Well, a
anybody
lot of people
can.
think it's aliens.
That could also be. I
There's
mean,
if you
I'm not.
follow Bashar or any of those people who are really into so Bashar is an alien that is channeled by a guy named Daryl Anka, I think. Um, and so Bashar is, according to Daryl, actually, I've heard Daryl on a couple of podcasts. And this is one of those interesting things to me, by the way, because I don't think anything that he says sounds crazy. I think it totally is fine. Now, I would look at that and be like, okay, so you believe that you're talking to an alien named Bashar, and that's fine. I will accept that that's what you know to be true. When I talk to my guides and stuff, I really don't question. Like, I know some people think it's crazy because they're like, you should know who you're talking to. And I'm like, I know that I can feel their energy and it's good and it's helpful and it's the same energy signature. I don't really know if they're aliens or fairies or angels or, like for me, it's not an issue. I think people get really stuck on like the labeling. But I really love that he owns an escape room with his wife in somewhere in Arizona or something like something super normal, mainstream normal job. And then he channels this guy that he says is this alien who helps prepare humans for their awakening and for meeting other alien life forms, which everyone not outside the spiritual world or not into the extraterrestrial is like, that is batshit crazy. But I love the duality of like, it's not though. That's just life, dude. Like, that's just how it is. But
Yeah,
he's been saying that 2027 is when we're going to have contact with extraterrestrials. And a lot
yeah,
of
but
people have
don't
also
we
been saying,
already like somewhat like? Don't you think maybe it's already here?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's so many things. Also, Lee Harris that I
Oh,
talked
yeah. You
about the
sent
other
me
day as
him. I
well.
haven't checked him out yet. Yeah.
He channels his guides that are called the Seas, which
Hmm.
are also like, and they're super accurate as well. And he gets like a monthly energy update, and he has this really nice calming language, and he kind of tells people what they can do to make things better for themselves if they're feeling all sorts of ways. And he gives 8 themes every month, and he's like, this is what will be showing up both personal spheres and in the world scene. And I just really enjoy these people that just share their visions, right? Because again, you can go and you can say, okay, I really relate to that, or I don't.
Yeah. Which is
And
fine.
it's and the duality with the, and I know I've heard him talk about being absolutely normal and just enjoying himself as well. Daryl
Yeah,
Bashar.
Daryl Anka, I think his last name
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's funny. It's funny because he's just
But
like,
that's life. Like, I
woman.
think that's the thing is people forget, like, we're here on earth to have a human experience. You can't always be ungrounded. I mean, you can be. There are plenty of people who do it, but you're not supposed to be. So the
Mm-mm.
fact that there's this guy who's on national tours of talk shows and podcasts, and I think he's written some books and stuff. I mean, I've heard him on a number of podcasts, and to be quite honest, everything he says, I'm like, yeah, that's totally the messages that I've kind of gotten, which is why I'm like, maybe I'm talking to extraterrestrials. I don't know. It's not, I don't really think about it. For me
Like the
personally, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the way I feel it is like that what we connect up to when we connect up is like it's energy, right? So if you call them one thing or another, that's not really the main issue.
I know. I mean, I've had energies talk to me that I've immediately been like, no, go
Hmm.
away. Because
Yeah, as long as you got discernment, you're
yeah,
right.
when you, I think the danger is if you don't know yourself and you don't know your own energy and you don't know what good energy feels like. I mean, I think there's no way to not know what not good energy feels like because it has a very heavy, dark, not nice, depressive, like ick feeling. But you have to for me, I'm clairsentient, right? So I feel it. I don't know how other people who maybe aren't clairsentient discern that. That's a question for somebody who's not, maybe. Um, but I'm kind of like, I don't really care where they come from. If the advice they give me resonates and sounds good, I'm like, okay. But it's again that sovereignty and discernment and being in your own body and your own self and knowing like, thanks, but no thanks is also valid. You don't have to do everything you're told, right?
Like what I do whenever I connect in is I basically make sure that it's for the greatest good for me and for the greatest good for all. So
Yeah.
I mean, and when you just make sure that you have your like security in place and that in the simplest ways, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like, and then cleanse, you know.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and I've talked about this before, sometimes when I feel or I see something darker, if I just let it sit for like a second within my protections, but just it's a lot of times it's me. a lot of times it's my own shadow or my own trauma or something that wants to be acknowledged and dealt with. And then I do my ways of doing that, which is normally to just sit and hear what they have to say and work with that, right? Like there's different ways to deal with your shadow. For me, it's a lot of like talking and visualization and being in my body. Other people do journaling or whatever. Um, but I think it's really interesting to be able to listen and connect. And I think a lot of people are getting able to do that, but still having the knowledge that you don't have to do anything or pass along if it doesn't resonate with you. Same rules as the rest of your life. You don't have to go with it. Like my guides have told me stuff all the time that I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And sometimes it comes back around because they're like, well,
You
you
should
kind of
really.
you're going to do that. But a lot of times, free will is an actual thing. So you can just be
Yeah.
like, no, you know.
There's that, and then there's also the actually going to the places where you feel a little bit uncomfortable to kind of push yourself, right? So it's
Yes,
the
and those are the ones
balance.
that come back. Those are the
Yeah,
ones where they're like, "Well, you got a little bit of a break, but
you really should.
you
Yeah,
gotta do that because you
you
have
gotta
to get
push
outside the
yourself
comfort
sometimes.
zone." Yeah, but I think the 2026 prophecy is really nice because not only is it really hopeful, because I do hope that more people wake up, and I don't mean wake up in like suddenly everybody's psychic. Like if that was the thing that happens, that's great. That would be amazing. But I just mean more like with everything going on in the world, it would be nice for everyone, again, to this distorted view from the water, this disillusionment. It would be really lovely if people could wake up to the disillusionment. And I do think that's happening. You can
I
see
think
it.
that's what's happening now,
Yeah.
and then I think what we're moving in towards is more opening up of way more different gifts. I think there's going to be a lot more telepathy. Actually, I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of more of that, and which is also why that it is kind of really important to embrace those shadows instead of pushing them away. Because when there's telepathy, people will be able to read you as an open book. And if you're still like stuck in your shadows and you are feeling shame about these things and you're not acknowledging them, then that will create some form of, I don't know what it's going to create, but I don't think it's going to be pleasant.
No. No, no.
um,
I think you're right. The telepathy thing is always so interesting to me because I have that with a lot of people that I'm attuned to. And I didn't really realize it until I think I was, like, home. I knew it with my husband. My husband, it goes more than telepathy, like, I will take on his headaches and things like that, so that's fun. But with my friends and stuff, I didn't notice it until I was home, like, a little over a year ago, and my one friend, she kept saying everything that I was thinking, and I was like the first couple times she did it, I was like, "That's weird," and then after, like, the first couple times, it started to get weirder because at first it was like, you know, should we go to Chipotle? And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I was just thinking that." But, like, we always used to go to Chipotle, so that's, like, a normal thing to say, like, we could think that at the same time. And then it was like we're out on a walk, and I'm like, "Oh, this would be nice if there was some deer." And she's like, "Usually there's some deer here, nice if we see them." And I'm like, "Yeah, that would be nice." And then we're, like, literally watching a movie, and, I was thinking something about the actress's husband, and she literally word for word was like, "So do you think he's actually a dick or not?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" I literally was just thinking that. And it
yeah,
happened a number of times, and that's when I was like, "I think that I'm, like, projecting my thoughts at you or something." But then she was like, "Well, I have this all the time as well." So I feel like when you're
yeah,
attuned with people, you are just
definitely. I have it with both my kids. I have it with my husband. And then there's also the annoyingly accurate seeing of television shows. Like no matter what we watch, I'm like, okay, this and this and this is gonna happen. And Thomas is like,
yeah.
spoiler.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, we do that all the time too. And like, we both have ADHD, so people will be like, "Oh, it's a ADHD pattern recognition." And I'm like, "Maybe, maybe not, I don't know." I mean, I was watching the Martha Stewart documentary with two of our mutual friends, and they were showing her family when she was a kid, and I didn't know anything about her life as a kid, and I just said, "Her dad looks like a Nazi sympathizer." And then like 2 minutes later, they said that he was a Nazi sympathizer, and they were like, "What?" Like, how and I mean, it wasn't he was just like a typical white dude, so I was like, "That was weird that I thought that." But I think it's amazing, like, honestly, that would make life, I guess, a lot easier for those of us that have integrated the shadows and don't really like, you would be able to be on that, wavelength of other people, but to your point, if you haven't dealt with your shit and you're not being authentic, it's not going to be a great place to be.
No, I still have shadows to integrate. They keep on popping
All of
up
us
these
do.
days. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, hi, I'm back. I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, because that's the final shedding, right? Like it's not brand new stuff that you've
No, 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 no,
never
no.
considered before. Exactly. It's the Ouroboros snake eating its tail situation. Yeah. I mean, I am looking forward to I don't know if I'm just a sucker for punishment, but I do like eclipse seasons a lot,
I love
hence the
eclipse season.
psilocybin experience. Like I wanted to go deep in it and get to those things, but a lot of people like I always know I'm not going to schedule any podcast recordings during eclipse season because all of my technology will F up and I will have tons of issues with anything tech related. Like I'll probably lose gonna have to like download stuff on my USB stick. I'll probably lose stuff. Like there's some general physical 3D issues that I have, but the more shadow work that comes up there, it like slingshots you forward in terms of like your development or what you need to deal with, like healing those shadows. If you embrace it as hard as it is, like know that you have the shadow period of the eclipse. So actually, I guess the week before this episode comes out, you might already start feeling things. Then you have the 2 weeks where we're in this eclipse window. And then you have like another shadow week after where things are kind of settling, if you will, like dust is settling. But if you embrace that time and really do introspection, do a lot of like meditation just with yourself, journaling, speaking out loud with
Nature.
nature. I was just about to say as well, go out in nature and just silently go through nature and see what comes. Like if you put in the work to an eclipse season, slingshot. It's one of those super highways on Mario Kart. Like you're gonna zoom, you know what I mean? But it's not easy. But I also feel like the things that aren't easy, the things that make you uncomfortable, they have the biggest results,
They
you know?
do. They absolutely do. Um, yeah.
We're just scared of
I'm,
being uncomfortable.
yeah, I'm gonna, like next Friday, I have, my friend is pregnant, and I suggested that we should throw like a nesting party for her. So for the first time, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna have a big women's circle and lead them through meditation, connecting with the mother. We need to honor the mother more and Mother Nature. So that's gonna be one for me. That's gonna be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's gonna be good.
Hmm. Those stretchy moments, though, are so good. They're
Yeah,
so good for you.
I'm
And it's
excited.
also like this threshold. Like it's scary the first time you do it, but then you step over the threshold and then you're like, I did it. And it gets more flowy and easier, right?
Yeah, and also, it's not. There's no doubt in my body that it's something that I'm supposed to do. So I'm like, I can absolutely do this.
Hmm.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that
I've been doing the women's circles here in Copenhagen. And we had our second one last weekend, I think. And we're already planning our next one in the end of March. And they're just so beautiful. And I know for me this year, it's it's community. Like I really want to I was just talking to my coach about this. I really want to build community. I feel like that's something that I have really missed, and as more of us awaken and step into it and need to find other people who are in that same kind of headspace, these circles, these communities that I'm trying to build, these get-togethers that I hold every month, like they're really important because you get to be seen as yourself in a way where you feel like you can fully be and you don't have to hold things inside. That's my hope. And I think to your point about difficulty and being uncomfortable, it's really uncomfortable for me to build this community. It pushes on so many of my triggers. Um the work, like not the actual community, that's always the best part and that's the reward I feel like for the uncomfortableness because they're just always it makes my soul feel very fulfilled. But building the community is very soul triggering in a lot of ways because it pushes on a lot of things and it's really hard work, honestly. I think unless if you haven't tried building a community or building a group before anything, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And it's that stretchy work where for this year for me, that's a big goal of mine is not to stop doing it even though it's slow building, but to stick with it because I really feel like that's very important, which again ties back to my gene keys, a lot of wanting to do work that feels of service to a higher purpose and wanting to feel that deep soul connection with the work that I'm doing. And that's again why I love having all these different systems to look at, because you can understand like this is hard for me, but this is what I'm meant to be doing. This type of thing is what I'm meant to be doing. These are how my gifts that are from the gene keys, like the way they're explaining it, this is how they coalesce into reality. This is how it happens, right?
Yeah. It's all about getting it all into the body and getting it out into the world, right? This is what,
Embodiment. Yeah. Embodiment
exactly.
is so important. Well,
Totally.
thank you so much for being on today, Signe, and explaining a little bit about the gene keys. Yeah, again, just to recap for everybody, if you go on genekeys.com, you can get a free profile. There's a lot of information on there. There's also a lot of podcasts that go like into the specific keys. And there's like specific gene key podcasts where they really deep dive into it. And then Psychedelic Playground, I think, is Eliana's podcast. She goes into the gene keys a lot there and talks about it as well. Richard Rudd also, I think, has a lot of different stuff out there that you can find. So
Many,
might as
many.
well get a free profile, see what it looks like. You can sign up for the Pulse newsletter, as Signe said. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for being on, Signe.
Thanks
I
for
will
having
tag
me.
you in the comments so people can find you on Instagram. And remember to like, rate, and share the podcast. Follow me on Embodied Witchcraft if you have not and you would like to have more witchcraft content in your feed. And I hope everybody has a very lovely day. Thank you for listening.